why payroll became one of the most regulated business functions in the world. Status confirmed. In the modern corporate world, payroll is no longer a simple private transaction between an employer and a worker. Today, it stands as the single most heavily regulated business function on earth. Beneath the routine arrival of a paycheck lies a massive, high stakes legal battleground. This episode dissects how payroll transformed from a basic workplace agreement into the primary engine of government tax collection and social engineering, proving that modern corporate survival relies entirely on absolute compliance. To understand how this regulation boom occurred, we must look back to the landscape of the early 20th century. Before this era, central governments funded their operations primarily through indirect means such as customs duties, public land sales, and trade tariffs. But as nations modernized, industrialized, and prepared for massive global conflicts, states required unprecedented, predictable, and continuous cash flows. Governments quickly realized that trying to collect income taxes from millions of individual citizens at the end of the year was highly inefficient, remarkably costly, and deeply prone to widespread evasion. The state's solution was to systematically deputize the employer. By passing the 16th Amendment to the United States Constitution in 1913, the federal government established a permanent income tax and shifted the massive administrative burden of tracking personal wealth directly onto corporate ledger systems. Lawmakers realized they could force companies to act as unpaid tax collectors, subtracting cash directly from the worker before the paycheck was ever handed over. This created a perfect self-reporting revenue pipeline for the state. The regulatory burden expanded drastically during the Great Depression. To build a social safety net, the government passed the Social Security Act of 1935. This historic law introduced the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, commonly known as FICA. For the first time, businesses were legally forced to compute, withhold, and match social infrastructure taxes from every single individual paycheck, adding another layer of mathematical complexity to the daily grind of accounting clerks. Then came a structural shift that permanently altered the employer-employee dynamic. The Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, designed to eliminate worker exploitation. This statute established the first national minimum wage, mandated time and a half overtime pay rates for hours worked beyond 40 per week, and enforced strict record-keeping standards. Suddenly, missing a single minute of tracking or miscalculating a special premium rate became a federal offense. The system reached a definitive breaking point during World War II with the Current Tax Payment Act of 1943, which turned temporary tax policies into a permanent recurring pay-as-you-go withholding mechanism. Think of early payroll regulation like the structural blueprint of a simple log cabin. The rules were straightforward, local, and easily managed by a single clerk with a paper notebook. Today, modern payroll regulation is like a skyscraper's automated electrical grid running through thousands of local, state, and international walls simultaneously. If a single compliance wire is misaligned in one room, the entire global enterprise faces an immediate regulatory fire, resulting in massive class action lawsuits and compounding financial penalties. By the mid 20th century, this soaring complexity made internal payroll administration a dangerous operational liability for expanding corporations. A late tax deposit resulted in automatic non-negotiable government fines. This dilemma forced the corporate world to execute a massive strategic pivot, outsourcing payroll operations to specialized third-party service bureaus engineered exclusively to absorb, compute, and manage compliance data at scale. This shift turned regulatory tracking into a highly profitable tech industry. moving the operational risk away from core business functions. Through the lens of macroeconomics, the modern state cannot physically exist without the corporate payroll manager. Payroll is the primary mechanism that converts private corporate capital into public infrastructure funds. Therefore, compliance, adhering perfectly to every government statute, is not an optional operational standard. It is the absolute core boundary line protecting an enterprise from institutional liquidation. As regulatory laws grew more complex, human arithmetic reached its absolute physical limit. Paper ledgers could no longer keep pace with the state. Technology had to adapt, or corporations would collapse. Tune in for our next episode. Episode 3: The Mainframe Revolution and the Birth of Automated Service Bureaus.